Shane's Rib Shack for this Thursday. Like we said and talked about on the way in, the fact that last week, Halloween, Thursday, this week, Thursday, number 1 in the month of November, getting set to hit the playoffs here pretty soon with high school football. We're going to talk about the high school football tonight. Some of the Dudley Panthers, they're on the way in a few minutes. And got Dennis White with us, so we'll go back with Dennis. We'll talk about some of the high school games last week. And also, before we do, the most important thing, I guess, or one of the biggest things we talked about last week was that NC State North Carolina game. And I was telling you last week, I thought one of the biggest things of the game, biggest factor going in would be the quarterbacks playing the quarterbacks. That ended up being the biggest thing, I think, the entire game for both teams. State's quarterback got off to a good start. State led early 10-0 behind Brandon Mitchell. Then the emotional state of the Wolfpack kind of wore down as the game went on a little bit. Carolina caught up. They went to their quarterbacks, Marquise Williams and Brent Renner. Renner got hurt, so he won't play anymore this year. He's out for the season. Late in the game, State goes to Pete Thomas, try to get the passing game going. Not enough to get them going. Carolina got the win. Into the game, after all the work by the quarterbacks and the other players, and T.J. Logan got his first touchdown as a college football player. Into the game, they had the celebration on the logo. The Tar Heels went out on that NC State logo, Our State, and marched and stomped and kicked and hit and jumped up and down on that logo. And that was another part of that game that got a lot of attention, too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you probably took it all in.
Yeah, I did. And, that's the tradition that when you are playing against your rivalry, you want to go to the logo because that represents that team.
What State should do is get a sign available some games over, a little no trespassing sign, stick that right inside the logo.
Yeah. And then that's the college tradition. And normally, and back in the days that when they had the statues and different things, they used to go by and hit it, just knock it down or whatever.
Yeah.
Now you can't get near that Rocky Clemson. You can't get near. These things now is a gold mine to these teams. So the logo it's fair game on the field.
Yeah, you think about it, I would like to see it, maybe around the end zone, midfield sometimes. It's painful to see it happen, but those things come and go, and like you say, that was a very good ball game, especially for North Carolina to get that win and kind of puts them in position. They've got Virginia coming in this week. State's got to travel to Duke to take on the Blue Devils over in Durham. Duke right now 6-2, and State struggling, and Carolina now on a little bit of an up after that big win. They're going to be hosting Virginia. Should make for another good week of college football coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it's interesting to check tweets. Is Eric Ebron going to do it and tweeting on the Cavaliers, and he certainly backed it up last week.
I guess he'll be more quiet this week. He was very vocal, very active last week, and he was even vocal after the game was over.
Yeah,
Eric Ebron.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He had an outstanding game. He broke a couple of his own personal records. Outstanding game, and as you alluded to earlier, Northern Gifford on T.J. Logan, first touchdown of his career. That's going to be the first minute.
And it looked a lot like some of his old Northern Guilford touchdowns, too, because he ran into the end zone pretty much untouched. He never got really knocked down, just ran right through the defense into the end zone and stood there, and he had that little motion to the crowd, just bring it, come on, bring it up there. And he was motioning toward the Wolfpack fans. T.J. Logan, excited about that, had a good game, and Ebron had a good game. He didn't get the touchdown he wanted, but that other receiver they've got, Davis, Quinshot Davis, had a touchdown catch or two, had a couple of those, and just a big game all the way around for them. They're happy, but you got to carry on to the next week. That's just such a big emotional week, that matchup between those two teams. They got to make sure now both teams are able and ready to play this week. Especially State needs a big win at Duke. Got to get ready for the Blue Devils. They've had such a good year so far, and Carolina's got to get ready for Virginia. Yeah,
and I've heard you said a lot on Friday nights after big games, short-lived, and get prepared for the next week. And I agree, which I think that is in-state rivalry, short-lived, and now you have about 3 or 4 more games left in this season to write your ticket on what bowl eligibility you're going to be. So I think that's very important now to look forward. Focus on what you're going to do next. But with Renner out, that's going to hurt, but it also is going to give the backup local guy from Charlotte an opportunity to come in, Marquise Williams, to show what he can do.
Yeah, he's about even on that chart now with Renner going into that game. Coming into last week, they pretty much split the time. You saw the hit that Brent Renner took, too. A couple of NC State players hit him. There were some calls for a late hit on that play. A lot of helmet-to-helmet contact. I listened to the game on the radio. I never heard so much of the penalties helmet-to-helmet. There were at least one player kicked out. I know the kid from State got kicked out early, and they may have got a guy from Carolina later in the game, but just a lot of heavy contact in that game. But I'm thinking, Renner was injured. Looked like he was feeling some pain when he got hit on that play. He came back in the game. I wondered maybe if he would have stayed out, would it have affected it anymore. Then it was his non-throwing hand, but you can't play football with a broken shoulder. People know that, but still, I was kind of concerned that he stayed in the ballgame after the injury happened.
Yeah, sometimes you can push yourself to the limit, and some injuries, I'm a firm believer, some injuries is not play again that game, is to play again forever,
Yeah.
to play again to savor your season. And I think that was one of those injuries, and as you said, if you'd got it attended to, that's why they have 9 trained professionals on their staff, the training staff over on the sideline to give you MRIs, to help you to look and see if you're eligible to go back. But trying to go on your own wheel, just because of in-state rivalry, you can do more harm than something good.
I think they said the surgery went well. I think he's got a good shot at the pros because T.J. Yates coming out of Carolina, not that much of a different quarterback than Brent Renner. Renner has a lot of those same characteristics. A lot of numbers, a good hard-working, steady player. I think he's got a good shot at the pros down the road someday.
Yeah.
I don't think his football playing days are over by any stretch.
No, he won't go top like Bridgewater or Tosh Boyd by no means, but there's still a spot on Sundays for him due to his intellectual knowledge of the game and due to his numbers he put up. He put up some great numbers. Last year he put up sensational numbers. So I think
his numbers are kind of close. I mentioned on the website just briefly this week. His numbers are a little bit close toward Darian Durant, the former Carolina quarterback who's been out of college for a while. He's been in the Canadian Football League, I think, now about 8 years. I mean, he just keeps playing. Durant just keeps on playing. He's in the CFL, but he's made a name for himself and picked up a paycheck up there.
That's exactly right. That's what I always, and I'm a firm believer, the same ink on the check on Sundays in NFL, the same ink that you get in Canada, may be a less zero or two, but it's still a good payday for you.
It's cashable.
That's right. Other than mine.
Unlike some of those basketball checks I used to get when I coached basketball, it did not bounce anyway. Did not bounce.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting week of college football, and real quickly, and I don't know if I can interject real quick, I had an opportunity to go over, stay local at home on Saturday, represent Greensboro Sports well at NCANT as they had their homecoming, the big event. They call it GHO, the greatest homecoming on earth. It was a big capacity crowd sold out, and they didn't have a good opponent, but they had a winnable opponent. A game that's where homecomings are.
Had a good day too, good crowd. I noticed some of your video just looking up at the stands made me feel like I was at a Dudley game, and expand the seats in the stadium stands about 3 or 4 rows more, 5, 10, 15, whatever rows wider. It was just a good crowd there that day.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I was able to pan in the crowd as they was doing the wave all around the entire stand. That usually a homecoming tradition that you get the wave going. They do it in 3 different motions, and we was able to capture that. But it is the best caption of the day was Dudley alumni. That's what I went there for. 2 local guys that you and I have been a part of. Watched them turn to good college athletes. That's Torrin Warren and Ricky Lewis. Both of those guys have 2 rings each for Dudley Panthers in championship years, and they meant a lot to our community. And it was good to see both of them have a good game.
You said Ricky had a couple of touchdowns?
Yeah, Ricky had a couple of touchdowns, a 14-yard touchdown run and a 1-yard touchdown run. But consequently, on that 14-yard, he got a penalty for jaw jacking because he pushed some big linemen through the defensive line, drove him right through the goal line and walked over him, and he got a 50, but it was celebration, and he was jubilant that he got in.
I would have loved to have the chance to play for that Virginia University of Lynchburg that day, just playing against A&T, because you would have plenty of time to play a lot of defense, have a lot of defensive fun that day, just making hits.
And Andy, you would not believe, and I'm not exaggerating, this is the truth, the fact, they had guys 6'7", 6'8", on the offensive line, 375 pounds. Each one of their linemen was 370 plus. On their line was in each one, and each 4 of the guys was 6'5", 6'7". It was amazing to see those.
That's some big guys from the opposing team.
Yeah, on the opposing team. And,
wow.
And
I bet some coaches like to get their hands on those guys.
And I talked with the AD and Earl Hilton, and he was saying, though they wanted to play football, and the grades, there in that particular setting fit for them, and they wasn't able to make it in a D1 program. But it's very interesting on that level.
Well, get ready for Dudley to come in just a couple minutes. Let's first look at this. Dudley at Southeast tomorrow night. You expect any kind of upset tomorrow night?
I'm not looking at upset. 2 things that you have to look at: Dudley defense and the weather. If Dudley defense show up and the weather is good and you can't stop their defense, the only thing you can stop their defense is if it's so cold and they can't get their hands on you. But I don't think we're going to have that kind of weather. So I don't foresee an upset with that defense. But this is football and anything can happen.
Well, you look at it all, getting ready for that game tomorrow night. Got some other big games area too. We'll talk more about them a little bit later on during the course of this evening. But we got a few down the road as well. And got that game with Grimsley going over to Smith. Grimsley wins, got a chance to make the playoffs.
Yes.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I know you're going to come right to me later, but just to are interjecting on that, the thing about it is Grimsley has been a team that now is fighting for their own destiny because they did what they had to do.
They can finish with a winning record in the conference too.
Exactly, and that would be huge for them. And then you know what, Andy, you will forget about those losses that you had because you're in the playoffs.
And forget about the players they lost to injury. Lost Scott Johnson, their top player, and they still got a win last week.
They still got a win last week against the top team in the conference. That's the most amazing thing. In the game tomorrow night have a lot of implications on, I believe, the third round bound. That's what I'm looking at projecting. You win tomorrow, you're going to make it to the third to perhaps the fourth round. And that's going to be a big, huge game tomorrow, huge game. And Andy, you said it, and I've got to steal a page right out of your book. Southeast need to be practicing it against 17 guys because that's what it seemed like when you go against.
I would put Dudley jerseys on all those guys and say, hey, this is how this Dudley defense is going to be. You got 11 guys that come out there. It's going to look like you got 17 to 20 out there.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
They cover the field side to side. You say sideline to sideline or side. What do you want to say? They cover that whole field as good as anybody around.
Yeah,
I mean, they're a lot like the Northern Guilford defense that won all those championships. Just a swarm of defense.
That's
Northern
right.
Guilford's guys not nearly as big as some of the Dudley guys, but Dudley just covers that whole field so well.
And the thing it is, the offense that Southeast run, the wing T, it fit right in with the defense.
Oh yeah, inside defense, tight.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And
just keep an eye on the edge and focus on the inside game.
Yeah.
Stop it up.
You're exactly right.
All you got to do is one guy hits him and he waits for help. The thing about the help gets there so quick.
So quick. These guys have more assists in a night than some teams will have in 3 or 4 games because
if you're a linebacker, you let them play in that Dudley team because you got those big linemen up front going to slow them down. Yeah. If they don't make the tackle on their own, the linebackers get there, clean up, make a ton of hits.
And the runners of Southeast have not seen a defense like Dudley, and that can be certainly a big intimidation factor. But the other thing that Southeast have, they have 5 running backs that, hey, you take your pick, and that could be a plus for them.
I think they got some guys injured too. Some of those names haven't been seen.
So we'll drop that down to what, 3 then? 3 or 4?
Yeah. If you put a freshman, how'd you like to be a freshman up against that Dudley defense? I'm running outside every time. Coach says you're going inside hole. I said, I just a little bit off balance, Coach. I had to go to the outside trying to find our team's sideline to get under that bench. Yeah. So what we're going to do right now because we're having fun. Let's get the Dudley guys in. Don't want to keep those guys too long. We'll get them rolling in. I think we'll get Mr. Mosley first and then Mr. Register, then Mr. McLean and our 4th member. Just get them in and let them, because then they want to get the food and they'll be able to get back over to Dudley because they want to watch that game tonight too with Southeast. Because Southeast comes into that JV game unbeaten also. And Dudley just one loss. We got Shane's Rib Shack. Going to close it out tonight with Dennis White back in with us. Talked with Dennis earlier about some of these games coming up. We had mentioned the Grimsley and Smith game and Dudley and Southeast just finished with the Dudley players. Outstanding job by them. Always good to if you can get that coach in, I think you don't let that go by the wayside. If you got a chance to pull that coach in, like we had Coach Woodruff on a few weeks back, we had Coach Kirkpatrick from Smith, get a chance to go those coaches in. Norris Best, the assistant coach of the Dudley Panthers, he's the guy who yells and screams, get those guys part of the game. Love to talk to those guys.
Yeah, Coach Best have big task. Majority of the receiver coaches are the ones that call the offensive plays. When I was at Smith, Curtis Smith, he was the play caller for the offense because the receiver coach, you know all of the plays. You institute a lot of the plays because it starts with the receiver for the pass plays. So who would know better the routes and the pass plays? But Coach Davis is right there with Coach Best with his arm around him with the wristband, letting him know, yeah, or nay on the call. So Coach Best have a great undertaking as a receiver coach.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of things with Coach Best. One thing we didn't go into as he was leaving out, we had many things to cover. Talk about Coach Davis. The best thing Coach Best has going on now, you got to say, is the O word, opportunity.
Yeah.
Just give somebody an opportunity, and that's the chance to run with it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When all of those coaches left, Coach Davis found himself. He called me for a couple of references of some coaches during the summer, and he had to hurry up and fill some spots. And we're the best place to look than within inside your camp. And looking within, because the guys that were still with you, they're loyal to you, and you can mold them and make them like Rodney Brunson.
Already.
You
already know so much about what you've already done. I mean, Coach Best said he knew every play Coach was going to call before he called.
Exactly. And and then Coach Davis and I was talking. He wanted to bring in a lot of guys that have been loyal to him in the past and a lot of other areas. And so we talked, and he came to a good conclusion to look within his camp to mold some guys. He moved Brandon Anderson up to defensive coordinator, which was an outstanding job.
Yeah.
Brandon Anderson been with him for 3 years, going on his 4th year.
And he led the defense at Grimsley.
At Grimsley
Went for the state
Yes,
championship
sir, under Coach Sanders.
And under Coach Shuping, too.
Yeah, exactly. And so he brought in a lot of great coaches that had somewhat stepped away from the game and brought them back and reunited them back with football. And now he's sitting pretty with 9-0, and a lot of those guys left, as you always say, probably wish they were still there.
Coach Floyd's probably saying, "No, looks like I'll be back just for a game or
just
two."
Just for a game, that's right.
Well, Dennis, what do you think about the other games? What about this Southern Alamance Page game? Pirates need this one in a bad way to make sure they can at least finish up there near the number 2 spot in the league. They may end up tied with Grimsley, may end up tied with Southeast. Could be a 3-way tie for number 2. Each team at 3-2.
Yeah, each team at 3-2, and that'd give the Patriots an opportunity under the year of the first year of the new head coach, give him an opportunity to get back and get in the playoffs. It's certainly possible. You're looking at that, you're exactly right. It get down to, and I say exactly right twice, and you get down to the point now you're depending on someone else to lose, someone to win, to help you out, and it's one of those things. The best way you can get in is to carry on load and pay certain to have that burden to bear.
Yeah.
After losing against Dudley, you have an opportunity now. Southern Alamance is not an easy team because they put up some points.
And they could finish 7-4, I think, if they win that game or in that neighborhood.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because they started out 5. They was 5-2, and coming down the home stretch, and they lost a couple of games Southeast into Dudley. So you're right about that. Southern Alamance have a great quarterback that should be heading to Duke University.
There is Jonathan Lloyd.
Outstanding athlete.
What about this East Forsyth at Northwest game?
That's going to be the big one of the night. As we know, what can happen here, Central can come out. Central can come out the winner of that.
They could win the conference.
They can win the conference based on who win that ball game. So
yeah, if East Forsyth knocks off Northwest, then you've got a situation there. Northwest has 2 losses. That would knock them down maybe to a tie for 3rd, and then East Forsyth would fall to 2nd since they lost Top Point Central.
Yep, and that's the way it is, and I like that. I like it like that. I know you like it the other way. You like the 2 top teams to battle for it, and I like to go in that win or lose, you're going to depend on this or that. I like that scenario because it make you play more when you're in that scenario that you don't want to help anybody, you want to help yourself, and you like those key matchups that this is going to be the matchup of the week,
all or none.
All or none. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right.
It's to be the old all or none law. What about Ragsdale at Glenn? Ragsdale's got some slim, albeit slim hope.
Yeah, and they have slim hope, but Glenn could actually win and stick in. Yeah. So that is one of the things I'm doing my homework this evening before coming in on these matchups, because you're a top at this. This is a good thing that you always do each year around this time. So I wanted to be prepared when I got in tonight for these matchups, and Glenn certainly can sneak in because you know who Glenn beat last. They upset Northwest,
right.
And so Glenn now has an opportunity to make their own destiny and sneak in the playoffs.
What about these Guilford County top players? You got a kid. I got about 10 names down. Think about these guys: Jamel Mack, High Point Central; Emmanuel Mosley at Dudley. He's a defensive back and a quarterback. Mack just a quarterback. I think that's an edge too. You think about the top player in Guilford County, gives a little bit of edge to the guys that play more than one position. But you got Jamel Mack, you got Emmanuel Mosley, you got Austin Coltrane at Northern having a great year. You got Reggie Gillespie, running back, Coltrane a quarterback at Northern. Gillespie, a running back at Southern, having a very good year. You got Rick Mack, who plays wide receiver, running back, defensive back for Southwest. You got Lamar Raynard, and he's a quarterback, and the running back Markel Cartwright at Andrews having very good years as well. Jalen Gavin, who plays quarterback, running back, and defensive back at Page, multi-player position there, multi-position player. You got Chris Rester at Dudley, plays linebacker and blocks as a tight end, another potential player. Then you got Jermaine Pratt at High Point Central, who's a quarterback, actually a wide receiver and a defensive back. How about all those guys? Who's your choice among those guys? You had to pick a Guilford County Player of the Year right now.
I would have to pick Emmanuel Mosley, and the reason why you alluded to it, that he played both ways. Emmanuel Mosley have a allow Dudley to be the team that they are. You take Mosley out the equation, that goes Dudley offense. You take Mosley out the equation, that goes Dudley defensive backs. So Emmanuel Mosley, when you say the back is the defensive back and the quarterback, two vital positions for your team to be 9-0.
That's a good point you bring up too, because if you subtract Mosley from the defense loses some, but not quite as much as if you took Mosley away from that offense. You take him out as quarterback, that's a much bigger void, much bigger loss there.
That take away that 24-point deficit that Dudley has been beating teams by, because what Emmanuel Mosley have done, Emmanuel Mosley have also given Dudley a lot of offensive reps by running the ball. He mix it up. Some quarterbacks can only throw the ball. Craven is only, when they go against Southeast, Bubba Craven can only throw it. So what happens is you got Emmanuel Mosley who can run it. So now that's a double threat. When you look at Jamal Mack at High Point, he can run it, but Jamal Mack does not play defense. So Emmanuel Mosley is doing double duty to help his team to be the top. So I think when you break it down and all the names you call, Reggie Gillespie on the offense, Jalen Gavin, offense and some of defense, but Jalen Gavin is not in Emmanuel Mosley.
You think about it, that's an interesting point you bring up about taking these guys away from their teams. If you subtract Austin Coltrane from Northern, there's a big hole, big opening there. But I'm thinking Northern, my prediction for Northern in the future is next year they'll go with Mook Reynolds as quarterback. The athlete he is, and Cam Harris is injured now. He'll be back next year. I think they may put the best athlete, Reynolds, at quarterback next year. Takes away a receiving threat, but you put it's like back when he had Keenan Allen. You put the best athlete on the field at that key spot. You take a guy like Jamel Mack away from Central. Central loses right at 3,200 some yards for the year because of his running and passing. You take these guys away, these quarterbacks, take Jalen Gavin away from Page. Page still has a chance, but they sure lose their spark plug.
Yeah, when you lose a spark plug like Jalen Gavin, he gave his heart and soul last week. And Jalen Gavin against several teams had 4 touchdowns. Grimsley, he was the main focal point of Page offense. You and I seen that against Northern, and you stated, Andy, several times that Jalen Gavin need to be put more in a position that he can run around the outside, that he can do more than just run the middle as a quarterback. So he needs some consistency and more time. And so once Page went to Gavin more, they begin to win ball games due to Jalen Gavin's ability.
Exactly.
But again, Jalen Gavin last week, he couldn't do anything but stay dirty, and that has been his uniform in the mud because of a tough defense of Dudley Panthers and a tough defensive back of Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley on offense as quarterback, he doesn't get sacked because he's very mobile. He doesn't make turnovers because he's very mobile. And when you look at Jamal Mack, turnover ratio, Coach Jones said he makes sometimes ill-advised passes that have caused his team when he tried to do more than what he need to do. And Emmanuel Mosley does not do that because of his high IQ of a quarterback.
What if you took Reggie Gillespie away, though, from Southern? I think that would be a big loss for them, too.
Yeah, Southern,
big
the
loss.
5 games they won in a row, I said they would only won 2 out of those 5. That's against Northwest, and probably against, they played the last team they beat. The week before.
Yeah, they got beat by Ledford.
They got Ledford beat by 38-35 by 2 points. And then Gillespie came in a couple of weeks before that. They beat your alma mater over at Western Gifford, like a drum, and they lost to Ledford that week before. So when Reggie Gillespie got going, he was the one to put in the scores to get his team to 5-4-0, 4 wins in a row. So you take Gillespie out, you're going to take away those 4 wins.
How about this list of names? Again, you're leaning toward the Guilford County Player of the Year up to this stage of the season. 1 game left in the regular season. 1 game left. We're headed toward game number 10 for many of our teams tomorrow night. What about this? You say Emmanuel Mosley.
Emmanuel Mosley, and the reason why I say Emmanuel Mosley there again, he's a dual threat. Emmanuel, smart. He makes some interceptions, ill-advised, but he made interceptions in a game that we know they had blew out the water against Page. But one thing about Emmanuel, he run a smart 4-quarter game.
Right.
Due to Stephen Davis now standing in his ear, that's enough to make anybody, when you got Custard as your coach, that'll make anybody want to stay in his line and in his zone. Emmanuel is a smart quarterback. He calls a great game. And they give Emmanuel an opportunity to mobile, to be audible as well. So that's a good thing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's a real good thing to rely on your quarterback to audible when he have that option.
What about this last option? Let's look at this, kind of closing it down toward the stretch of the night. Shane's Rib Shack. You got this Richie Incognito, the guy down at Miami, the big bully. Incognito is bullying up against his teammate, Jonathan Martin. Have you kept up with that any this week?
Yeah, I've been on
pretty
that.
Crazy. You got
I've really been on that.
Incognito taking over and trying to run off his teammate. They said, we want you to toughen this guy up. He went well beyond that when he bullied his teammate. His teammate ends up leaving the team, quitting the team.
Yeah. Incognito, he says some things that me and the gentleman had a great relationship. We had a football relationship. We had a trustworthy relationship. But behind his back, this is when all the talking, the racial slurs, different things was going on. And it got so bad that, as you said, he left the team. Now, this is one thing I've never seen that, and I know you're the historian of football. Have you ever seen this type of thing happen on
I've
pro
seen
level?
guys retire, but not leave a team.
Not
maybe
leave the team, yeah.
Not because of something like this.
Because when you walk away, my understanding is you're walking away from your contract and your paycheck.
Yeah.
So you're walking away from your livelihood as well. So it's going to be very interesting. And the coach is not taking any part right or left. He's straight down the middle. He said if anything come out of this, the chip's going to fall.
That's going to be tough for Miami to get ready to play a game this week after all this coverage surrounding this incident this week, this bullying situation with Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin, Miami Dolphins. Your coach Philbin, the coach of the Dolphins, that's going to be tough getting that team ready to play this week.
Now, it is.
Hard to get focused.
And sometimes I look at things from a totally different perspective. I look at things as this perspective and this. Is this going to be a ticket seller? But it's not, because Miami's been winning.
It's not going to help the team at all.
It's not going to help you at all. So if this was a publicity stunt for you, you certainly went back the wrong way.
You got negative publicity.
You got negative publicity now, because what you're doing is anytime that there is personnel problems with your players going against each other, that's hard. That's hard. You do this if it's an opposing team, but not in your same team.
Right.
Yeah, because you're a family and you.
Yeah, you don't try to tear down within your own system.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't try to tear down the other team.
Yeah,
I've heard guys calling out players on other teams, but not on their own team.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I have seen situations in basketball where a couple of guys on the same team called up by the coach may get into a little scuffle during the game. They wasn't fights breaking out guys against their own team, but that's just kind of a decoy to kind of get the other team off their game, I guess you'd say. This is bad news here.
This is certainly bad news, and it comes at the wake of Dez Bryant, the Cowboys.
Right.
A couple of weeks ago, he was on national TV going off on his players, his teammates, and then now this come up, and and when you seen the Peyton Manning loss, Peyton was going over. He was not jaw-jacking to the point that it got the media attention, but he was letting his receivers know, hey, you need to get your butt in the route so I can hit you, because we just lost the ball game, and now we're undefeated. So broke our record of being undefeated. So that's not negative. That's positive. But the media could have blew that out of proportion.
There is one NFL team left unbeaten, though. I think Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes, sir.
They had a
Kansas City
game
Chiefs.
last week. They still have not lost a game.
The Chiefs are doing outstanding. One of the things that we're looking at in our area, Carolina Panthers, is on the prowl.
That's why I was asking, I think, Emmanuel about what time are they on TV Sunday.
Yeah,
he said
4:15.
There used to be a moment at 1 o'clock, but it'll be later. It would actually be like I said, it won't be 4 o'clock. It'll be about 4:15.
4:15, yeah, West Coast.
They start that a little bit later than the 4 o'clock.
You're exactly right out west, and the old Candlestick Park area, I called it now the new name of the stadium, and the Panthers have done outstanding. Stewart came back. He had a good game. Defense is doing good. I always say my main man from South Carolina Gamecocks, Captain Munnerly, the captain of that defense. And the thing Cam Newton has not done that he has been doing, throwing ill-advised passes.
Sure. He's not taking quite as many hits this year either.
Right, and that helps a lot because that offensive line is protecting their investment.
And not taking as many hits in the fact he's not running the ball quite as much. He's running it when he needs to, when he probably should run it, but not taking that extra run he shouldn't make. And I read something today about Coach Ron Rivera had a talk with John Madden in preseason, kind of getting in his ear a little bit. They met out in California. What should Cam Newton be doing more of? What should he be doing less of? Coach Madden said, don't have him run the ball quite as much. You're exposing him too much. You're going to shorten his career.
Right.
And kind of endanger him. So don't have him run that ball quite as much. They've cut down the runs quite a bit this year.
And he went to the right person. He went
John
to
Madden knows.
he went to the head
He's
of
been
the
there.
heads. Yeah. And the thing about
Plus,
that,
he made that video game.
yeah, you're exactly right. He hurried up and was able to sit down because everybody was playing Madden. And the thing that Madden did for Rivera was save his career. He gave him longevity. So
first part of the year, one of our questions on here when we came in, how much longer do you think Ron Rivera is going to be with the Panthers? He's gone after this year when they lost those 2 games. Lost that game to Buffalo, then they dropped the other game as well to Seattle.
To Seattle, the first game of the year. You're exactly right, back to back. And then they came back, and you and I talked about this when they beat the Giants. That gave him a few more. They gave him a few more months, and then now he's over 500. They gave him another year.
If they beat the 49ers, they got a good shot to keep on rolling too. But I think they've got. Everybody's saying they got a better shot to beat New England on Monday night when they come back home. I think they got a better shot to beat San Francisco. Myself, New England's just always. That's like playing the Dudley Panthers at Tarpley Stadium. They play place you play New England's tough.
Yeah, anyway you
Tom
play
Brady, who knows?
Yeah, anyway you play New England, it's going to be tough. But the Panthers, be as it may, they're setting their destiny, and right now they're the team to beat in their conference.
Oh, they are. Yeah, the Saints are still up there, but I mean they're only a game behind the Saints right now. The Falcons and the Buccaneers are just pretty much out of it completely.
Right. They're pretty much out of it. Due to the no fault of the Atlanta Falcons going into Carolina last week and getting derailed because Atlanta is down this year and Carolina's up.
A lot of injuries on Atlanta's team.
A lot has, and
Julio
Gonzalez.
Jones, Roddy White, key receivers, that definitely affects what Matt Ryan can do as a quarterback.
And Gonzalez, he can't do much by himself.
Tell you what, he can still do a lot, though. That guy's a talent. He's just such a big target.
And you know who
can't
has,
stay with him all day long.
And a lot of professionals has labeled Eric Ebron as the next.
I know. I've heard those comparisons too. He's got that kind of frame, that kind of size.
And being in the class with Tony Gonzalez means a lot.
Somebody made that comparison for you. That's almost like putting, as you mentioned earlier during this conversation, back about 6 o'clock or 5 after. That's putting extra zeros on that paycheck.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And that'll keep that ballpoint pen busy for you, and that's what you want to do. And how about that? You talked about the matchup with Northern Gifford, former Northern Gifford, and the former Dudley Panther. How often do you see that, man? That was
unreal.
big time.
That's huge for Guilford County.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
That was huge for Guilford County. Now, a lot of those kids are friends, and you heard the Dudley guys
Yeah, and that
say.
game as well, Allen had like 128 yards receiving. That's a very solid day. Emerson had an interception. That's a big day anytime that happens, too. And he had several tackles and a pass deflection. Just a very good day for Emerson. Seen a lot of playing time. Coming out of NC State, having that kind of a suffering senior year he did in a way after an outstanding junior year. Some thought Emerson might struggle as a pro. He's not doing bad at all.
He's not doing
and
bad
plus, for the Redskins' sake, they won it in overtime.
Yeah.
They won.
And the thing about Emerson, Andy, I'm going to say that, use that again, he's adding some zeros because that's what he's doing. You know, when he signed, it was guaranteed so many interceptions. So a lot of people don't realize when you sign, you get those bonuses and incentives. There you go. And,
we make the playoffs.
We make the playoffs,
you
that's
win
right.
10 games, all those different bonuses in that paycheck and that contract.
It's a lot, and that keep that ink going as well.
Thinking about going, we're going to go here in just a second. One final note. We talked about bullying with Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin with the Dolphins. What about bullying with that, going back to that NC State-Carolina game? Was that bullying when the Heels went out and stomped on NC State's logo at the end of the game? Was that bullying anyway? I felt a bit taken aback when that happened. I almost felt like they were coming after me.
Well, and I think we can use the term, and I think we'll be safe. Don, graduate of Tar Heels, and I love the Tar Heels. I think we can use that as an ambush. Can we? Could that be the correct term? You think we can put in there an ambush?
Yeah, they were definitely.
They ambushed
felt
the
like
logo.
they were ambushed that night. Yeah. They kept talking about being our state. I mean, were they coming after NC State because they had beaten them badly in the game? Were they coming after and trying to attack them? I don't think the Heels saw the thing about the leg. That's about the logo. They were just stomping NC State because they stomped them in the game, beat them in the game. They wanted to go ahead and stomp and finish them off.
Right, vandalism, property damage. You know, we can put it in that category and no fines. But I think again, as I said, that's tradition. Once you beat a team, that's what you want to do.
I felt like they were coming after me. Really, I was fearing for my life. I was listening on the radio. I didn't even see it. I felt like I saw it on the news that night. I did see the video on the news, on the sports news, but I felt almost like, man, I'm being stomped upon.
Right, and then Under Armour came out with the song "Protect This House," and that means everything that is in the house, and that's like your living room. When the company come, you don't want them to damage your living room when they leave, you know. And so that's just like riding in your front seat. You know, I cherish your car, and I wouldn't want to get in your front seat and have pizza stains all in it and just disgrace your car because my team lost to your team or my team beat your team. So, you know, it's the same that if we go to Don and throw...
Well, you think this might all work out better if Eric Ebron and the Heels might just come back with some sort of verbal or written apology? Isn't it time maybe just to send the Wolfpack maybe an apology over to Raleigh?
Well, you know, Andy,
I'm sorry I stomped on your logo.
Yeah, that's just like me sending you a letter saying I'm sorry for saying you exactly right 10 times. I don't think it's going to happen. You know, I just have to be mindful of it the next time. I think they'll be mindful of it the next time.
Very good explanation.
And move on. But like you say, I deem that as all part of the game. I'm for that. I like that. I like that better to do that than go and tear down the statue that is in front of your stadium and you have to repair it after, or you use profanity towards the team on national TV, degrade them, or do other things that you can do, go in and mess up their locker room. You know, I think that is childish, but I think it's all part of the game when you go and step on that logo in the middle of the field. Because when I played basketball high school, Lauren Richland starred Stanley Roberts, who played with Shaquille O'Neal, LSU.
That's right.
He took the basketball and just slammed it all over our mascot. You know, literally slammed it down.
The live mascot?
No, the logo, and just slammed the ball down on it and took that big 14 and just stepped on it. They beat us by 25 points, you know, and so I didn't like him ever since then. No.
Lasting impression, all right?
Yeah, I never forget it. You know, Twin Tower, LSU. If he tell anybody about he played with Shaquille O'Neal in college, they were roommates. They was best friends. It was like what happened to you? Wouldn't believe it. You know, there was and I'll never forget that about Big Stanley Roberts. I had to guard it, man. You know,
you covered him that game.
Yeah, I had to cover him.
How many points did he have that game?
He had probably about 30. Yeah, he had about 30. I had a busted lip.
Boy. How tall was he then?
Stanley Roberts, he was 6'6".
6'6", and you were how tall? 6'2"?
I was 6'1" and a half.
6'1" and a half, almost 6'2".
And I weighed only 177 pounds. So he was outweighed me because I played power forward, and whenever you get in the box, you know, I had to front him, and then the center had his backside, so he'll push me out the way. You know, we tried to double team him. We ran the box and wanted him. It was only a box for us, and he covered us up in the box.
Right.
Can you imagine trying to run a box and wanting the guy like Stanley
Roberts? So it looks like you guys are headed toward a pine box.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
It was fun, though, sticking the guys that everybody was there.
And like we said before, it makes a last impression, gives you something to talk about down the road.
Yeah, exactly right. He gave me some zeros, black eyes, you know.
Well, Dennis, good job tonight.
Thanks a lot,
Always
Andy.
appreciate you coming in. We'll see you down at Southeast tomorrow night for the Dudley game. Good to see the Dudley Panthers at Shane's Rib Shack. Emmanuel Mosley, Chris Register, Albert McLean, and also Khalil Vance, the coach of Norris Best. Thanks to Don Moore. Keeps us going each week at Shane's. Only a couple of weeks left in our broadcast season. The November month is moving quickly, and the games are moving pretty quickly. We'll see you again next time at Shane's. Take care. Talk to you soon.